Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Pros podcast by Investor Fuel, the nation's premier real estate mastermind. I'm your host, Dylan Silver, and today on the show we have Nick Copland. Nick is the longest standing coach in the midterm rental space with over 500 students coached across the United States. Nick, welcome to the show.
Hey, so nice to be here. Thanks for making a spot and squeezing me in. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, man. Before we hopped on here, I was saying I always like to get folks' backstory because although our average listener might be doing multiple deals a year, we also have many listeners who are on the outside and trying to get some optimism as to how to get started. So what was the start like for you?
Wow, for my wife and I, it's been around 6 years ago that we started getting into short-term rentals and stuff like that. It's kind of funny. Our story is a little bit unique, I think, in that we bought a house. And if you were to look at that house from the street, it looks like a ranch style, but the way the yard sloped down, it actually had a walkout basement, right? So when you enter in the front door, it just looks like a single story home. But when you're inside the house, there's a staircase that goes down and there's a whole nother living area down there. So once we bought that house, we got an idea and we said, hey, we can kind of make this into like a makeshift duplex, and then we can live upstairs, and rent out the downstairs. So that's what we did. We wanted to update the upstairs kitchen where we were living. So I took a lot of that cabinetry and appliances and ultimately put them downstairs in what was like a gigantic utility room. Okay, so I made a utility room. It's not just the furnace and the water heater anymore. There's also now a washer and dryer in there and a full kitchen. So, and there was already 2 bedrooms and a bathroom down there and a living room and an area that we made into a dining room. So we turned a single family dwelling home into a duplex, lived upstairs, rented out the bottom, and of course the bottom on doing short-term rental. And then we later converted into midterm rental, that's where it's at. Forget the regulations of short-term rental and the headache of constant turnover and stuff. Having tenants that are just really high caliber individuals that are staying for usually a minimum of a month, but on average, it's somewhere from 2 to 6 months. For example, traveling medical professionals, their contracts are always 3 months long. Usually like 89 days to be more specific if I'm not mistaken, but sometimes they want to get up there a few days earlier or a week and stay an extra few days or a week after, because when they're there, they're working like 12 hours, 6-7 days a week. And so when they're not working, they're like, grab a bite to eat and go to bed, right? So sometimes people who like to be traveling medical professionals, they also like to see where they're at. So they'll come early or, stay late outside of their contract window. So, it could be 90 days plus a week or 2 weeks. And so that's a really nice booking. These people are already background checked. Obviously, they work at hospitals. And so a really good example of a midterm rental client.
Nick, when you say all this, and for folks who are not in the midterm rental space, it sounds like, well, I haven't thought about doing this before. Maybe I'm doing fix and flips. Maybe I'm doing short-term rentals. But, Airbnb is a short-term rental space. And in my head, I'm thinking it's going to be harder to find these nurses. It's kind of niche. Where
Hmm.
can people go to find midterm renters?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it as it relates to, okay, so when I coach people, when they come through my program, I have a list of about 30 different platforms. That's 30 different platforms. Some of them are a hybrid of short-term and midterm. Some of them are just midterm specific. Midterm rentals, some people know it by the name corporate housing, okay,
Mm,
as well. And so there are lots of platforms. You can even use Airbnb and VRBO and just change your minimum length of stay, right? And then it only shows it to people who are when somebody's on the booking platforms looking. It only shows them to people who are looking for longer than, say, a 30-day minimum stay, right?
right.
So you can even use those platforms, and that's fine as well. But I mean, getting an insurance client. Let me give an example of my wife and I's business. By the way, we're located in the greater Portland, Oregon area. And last winter, there's this really nice area called Lake Oswego. Very nice, some bougie folks over there. Hi, if anybody watching or listening. But it's a really nice area. And there's tons of mature trees in this gorgeous lake and, nice bougie shops and everything. Well, we don't normally get snow or ice or sleet, very much. Of course, we're right by Mount Hood. They do, of course, and we're right by the ocean as well. But right here in the greater Portland, Oregon area, it's not typical. Well, last year, there was an ice storm that came. Oh my gosh, that Lake Oswego area got hit hard, and trees, were coming down on people's houses, ripping power lines out. It was something magical in the negative sense, I suppose. But they there were tons of people that needed housing. And our business had the best year ever last year. A lot of it was because of that. Just to give an example, two of those clients that we had move out of their houses while it was being renovated. Two different families were in two of our properties for 11 months, right? And it's not them paying us, it's the insurance company. So that's B2B, that's business to business. It's very, good money,
Yeah,
and these are high client, people. We also get a lot of relocations for, like, people relocating for work. It
sure.
could be international, it could be from another state or another city, doesn't matter. But we get a lot of job relocations or insurance housing or people traveling for work. There's a
Right.
lot of great midterm rental clients out there.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
To your point, Nick, there's a lot of concern for people who have short-term rentals that they're putting their eggs in one basket, right? And
Absolutely.
I'm in DFW Metroplex, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
Dallas, Fort Worth, the surrounding area. And I don't know if this is still the case, but about 2 years ago, when I was first getting into, at the time, wholesaling, there was a conference I went to, and in Addison, which is a part of the DFW Metro,
Hmm.
they had banned Airbnb at the time.
Sure.
Short
Yep.
term, right?
Yep.
And so for someone who has the midterm rental space, you are maneuvering outside of that, right? And
Absolutely.
at any point in time, you could say when it's vacant, hey, I'm going to convert it to a short term. But at the same point in time, your main strategy is the midterm. And so while the short term, I feel like is more maybe on the internet and everyone's pushing it, it seems like, and that's what people are talking about. This is a topic where, there's not as much out there about it, and I think more people could and should be capitalizing on it.
Oh my gosh, 100%. I mean, if with the experience that you have, and I'm sure a lot of people listening or watching this as well, a lot of people have heard about regulations as it relates to short-term rental. So like anything less than 30 days is banned in a lot of cities. Sometimes it's a county thing as well. And obviously there's no regulations around, 30 days or more. And sometimes people will buy or rent a home in a nice neighborhood, and typically nice neighborhoods are HOA, homeowners association.
Yeah.
So let's say your city or your county doesn't have a regulation specific for short-term rental, but maybe you rent or buy a house in an HOA, homeowners association, and in their bylaws or in their CCRs, they have that written in there. And I have coached and heard a lot of stories of people who buy or rent a house. They do all the air DNA, they do all the research to make sure it's going to be profitable and right location and stuff. And there's a lot of things that can easily be overlooked as it relates to somebody's success in midterm or in short term.
Yeah, for
But
sure. And
you know,
when I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking, I don't have any deeds in my name or in a company that I own's name, so I'm in the beginning phases. I actually just got my real estate license, so I didn't get the license. I passed the test on Monday.
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency. It's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
So I'm grateful that that's over. But when I think about my future, I'm thinking about, well, do I want to go fix and flip? Do I want to go short term? I really don't know, right? And
Yep.
then and for many people, when you're looking at these options, it's almost like what would you say? Overwhelm? It would be like, well, which path do I go down?
Yeah.
But with midterm, you get a lot of the benefits of short term in the sense where you're not having someone
Yeah.
stay for super long periods of time. They also typically have, like you alluded to, they're in a demographic where they're well paid, so you're probably less likely to deal with a squatter situation than you would in a long term, year to year lease. And on top of that, because you're dealing with corporate professionals, right, nurses, folks who really need a place to stay temporarily, the odds are that they're going to maintain the place better in many cases than a long-term renter would, which, as we know, can sometimes destroy the place.
Yeah. I want to talk about squatters for a minute, because what has happened across the United States, like somebody will book a place on Airbnb for 1 or 2 nights, and then they'll just stay, right?
Yeah.
And but that makes sense, because that person who would choose to do something like that, they're only having to pay for 1 or 2 nights to then become a squatter.
Yeah.
A lot of people can do that. Now, compare that to what midterm rentals do. We have a minimum length of stay of 30 days. How much do you think a 30-day stay is compared to a 1 or 2 day stay? So somebody who is financially capable of paying up front for a 30-day stay, not in a long term, but in a short term or midterm situation, statistically, that person's not going to be your squatter.
Yeah, statistically,
I mean, come on,
100%.
And so it's just the clientele is a lot higher. I've heard a lot of concerns, around squatting in what I do and coaching people,
Yeah.
But when you transition to the midterm rental, as we've mentioned a couple times already, the caliber of the clients are really high, and you don't have the same types of risks. I mean, think about short term: bachelor party, bachelorette party,
Yep.
you know, there's so many short little things that can, little things going on, and somebody rents a place and throws a party in the house, and you got neighbors complaining, you got damage, you have this and that. Oh, this is a story I love to tell. Doing this for more than 6 years, having hosted hundreds of people across all of our properties. By the way, we either own or arbitrage, and we can talk about arbitrage in a minute. We
Mhm.
either own or arbitrage all of our properties, right? And we've had hundreds of bookings over the course of 6+ years. And the worst thing that's ever happened, and get this, there was a desk chair right? We had a workspace in one of our houses, and this was a great couple, and they were traveling with two pets, and they came from somewhere on the East Coast, and they came over, and he had a job that allowed him to work remote, and then she was a traveling nurse. Okay, so it's a married couple, older than me, and he reaches out to me one day and he says, "Hey, it looks like I've caused some damage to the chair. I don't know if it's from, Amazon or Wayfair or wherever you got it from. I'd like to replace it." And I was like, "Oh yeah, wow, thank you so much. Why don't you shoot me a picture and let me look at that?" And it was like one of those, not a leather chair, but not plastic. I like to say pleather, half leather, half plastic.
Yeah.
And it's like, you go up and down on that thing enough times, it starts to, over
Right.
time, it starts
Yeah.
to chip away and just kind of fall off. That's all it was. That was the damage he was talking about. And he so badly wanted to replace it. I mean, just think about the caliber of the people that we're dealing with here. It's like, he just up and replaced the chair for something that was normal wear and tear. That's the
That's
worst thing that
tremendous.
we've had. It's just crazy.
When we're
So,
when we're talking about uh, midterm versus short term, when we're talking about going about this process and being new to it, I think, and without giving away all the game here, Nick, because of course I understand being a coach, this is really the intel that other people don't have that you have, right? But
absolutely.
I'm thinking if there's these professionals, nurses, so on and so forth, business people, what percentage of the time are you getting the rent from that person themselves versus their
Oh, yeah.
company is assisting in relocating, and the company may actually be the ones who are interfacing with you versus the renter themselves?
No, and that's one of the amazing things about midterm versus short-term slash vacation model, is that the majority of what we're doing is working with companies, right? So your money is very safe. Even if there was damage,
Yeah.
that company has a reputation on the line, you know?
Yeah.
And so you can reach out to whoever, HR or whatever at that company and say, "Hey, while so-and-so was staying here, this happened. Here's some photos. My photos have a timestamp saying, showing the day I took the photo to show that it happened either while they were there or right after they checked out when we did a walkthrough inspection, and
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
So that is a great peace of mind that somebody has. There's just a huge difference of working with an individual or working with a company. A company has multiple streams of income to make their company successful. An individual, if it's a married couple or a couple, maybe there's two incomes.
Yep.
But there's also many people that only one person works, even though they're a couple. And what happens when one of them, loses their job or both of them, or something like that? There's just statistically, I love statistics as far as like making good business decisions and poor ones or low risk and high risk decisions.
Asset management. Yep.
Man, it's that famous thing, working smarter, not harder. And
Absolutely.
I think midterm rentals is working smarter and short-term rentals is working harder. Now, don't get me wrong. Like if I have a 6-month booking here and then I get an option for a 2-month booking here and I go ahead and take it and there's less than 30 days in between there, I'll squeeze in some short terms, right?
Right.
But I have systems in place that I train the people that I coach on how to accept safe situations and what type of questions to ask to avoid them and things like that. And so, I do a midterm rental or corporate housing model with the occasional short term to fill in the gaps.
So when you're dealing with, let's just say, a hospital, right? I'm thinking nurses, because right now, especially the last 5 years, it seems like nursing is one of the best professions for young people, college grads to get into. And you're looking at the salaries for everybody in the medical profession, but you're also looking at the demand specifically for nurses. And then, of course, there's different types of nurses. There's the nurses that can prescribe and so on and so forth. I'm not in that field, so I don't know all the terminology, but I do know that the demand is so high that I could potentially see people in the midterm space developing a relationship that extends beyond one stay, right? So you have one stay, that person leaves for whatever reason, and then another person comes in. Do you see a lot of that kind of the repeat business from the same corporations that are fulfilling the stays at these midterm rentals?
Yeah, I think about it. Like if a hospital, like if somebody's working at a hospital as a traveling nurse or even a medical professional, and they stay at your place and they have a good experience, the home is comfortable, the location, you as a host, you're available to them and professional and communicate well. Uh, when their time period is coming to an end, number one, they often extend. So they do another 90 days sometimes. And that's how you get a lot of 6-month bookings with the
Yeah.
same people that you're already comfortable with. Also, they sometimes have the kind of the old school push pin boards, whatever in the break room at the hospital. And,
Hmm.
they can leave notes for people, other traveling medical professionals coming in to say, hey, check out this place. And you can provide them with that information to print out and stick up there for you, which is going to help you and then allow them to kind of give a review of you almost by leaving that there for other people coming in. But then just the HR at that hospital, knowing that you stayed there and had a great experience, why would they not recommend to other medical professionals coming in to work at their hospital?
Housing is very hard to fulfill, and so having that connection to someone who has a midterm rental, if I'm in charge of a hospital, like either you're putting them up in a hotel, right?
Yeah.
Which can be very, very expensive or not the right conditions. You're putting them in an Airbnb, which, that can be tricky because if it's booked, right?
Yeah.
And so having folks like yourself um, is an excellent resource. And I think for a lot of folks, may not even realize that they can do that. And they may be thinking, well, how do I develop a relationship with a hospital, right? But that's why they reach out to you.
Yeah.
Pivoting a bit here, Nick, going from doing it yourself, right, midterm rental, to then scaling to 500 students,
Yeah.
right? Guide us through that.
Yeah. Well, if I go all the way back to when that transition in my own life happened, it was like I had been doing short term. I learned about midterm, started doing midterm, and then I said, what else is out there? I started doing research and checking things out, and I actually I paid to join a mastermind. I paid to join a program that had actually just launched. I didn't know that it had just launched at the time. But here's the really funny thing. As soon as I paid the same amount as everybody else to come into that program, I was the one answering all the stinking questions because I already had some experience, right? And so about 2 weeks in, I contacted the owner of the company and I said, "Hey, I had a lot of knowledge coming into this, and I paid the same amount as everybody else." And anyways, the long and the short of what happened in that conversation when I reached out, he said, would you be interested in me hiring you to coach? So I coached for that company for over 2 years, and so that's a lot of my experience before my wife and I launched MTR Authority, MTR Midterm Rental Authority, and that's our business now. But over the last 3 years of my coaching experience, that's how I got into it.
Mm.
And that's what has opened up the doors for me to help so many people from east to west, from north to south, even a few Canadians as well. uh, but uh, but really, that's how it happened. That's how I got into it.
Nick, when you talk about that, and I say this on nearly every other podcast, if not all, most of the podcasts, right, is that you never know when these strategic relationships can be fruitful, right? So not having your eggs in one basket because sometimes the basket doesn't bear any eggs, right? But at the same point in time, you went into this thinking, here I am paying for a mastermind. Then you became the mastermind, right?
That's right.
And then
Yeah.
now here you are today, 500 students plus and counting. And probably didn't even envision that when you went to go initially sign up for the mastermind.
Absolutely not. No, yeah, I was just going in to be a sponge and just absorb all of the information and knowledge, turn it around and apply it to my wife and I's companies, and yeah, it's networking, it's just doors open and doors close in life, and here we are, But I have absolutely no regrets. It's been wonderful helping people across the country learn to do midterm rentals and corporate housing and arbitrage in particular, and to help them do things they never realized they could do themselves.
When I think about arbitrage, by the way, I personally love arbitrage. I have two kind of, well, I'd say three personal catchphrases. One is asset management. Asset management. I'm thinking about, is there an ROI on this sushi dinner? Or am I spending $125 because it looks cool, right? And that's just where I'm at. One day maybe I won't have to think about it like that. But another saying I have is being a networking junkie or guerrilla networking, fanatical networking. Um, but when I think about these things, um, I also think about positioning it in a way where it makes sense, not just for me, but for my future, right? And so you have these people who are not necessarily aware of where to start, right? So they're reaching out to you and they're saying, well, what do I do to get in touch with the hospitals to start, right? And maybe they're gung ho, they want to do something right now. How many of these people can start immediately, and what's kind of the build up phase? Because there's this temptation to make money fast, right? But in actuality, you got to find the property, you got to restore it, you got to make the connections with the hospital, so on and so forth. So reasonably, for someone getting started, without giving away all the game, Nick, what's
Sure.
kind of like the launch phase for someone who wants to get in the midterm rental space?
I have coached the vast majority of people I've coached will get their first property in the first month of me coaching them. That's
Wow.
the majority.
Hmm.
I've coached two people in particular, and I have testimonials on our website of the actual people, that two of them got 5 properties in their first month. Now, that is not normal. Okay. No, one in the first month or two is totally normal, totally doable. Um, but it is, we are a white glove, silver platter coaching program. You don't have to have any background knowledge in anything related to real estate. I start coaching you from where you are. And if where you are is at 0, I don't know if there's such thing as -0, but I have coached people that know nothing and led them to success. Absolutely. Right. Um, it's just understanding, it's being comfortable, it's being coachable and able to move your money in a way by listening to somebody who's been there and has tested it over multiple years, has coached multiple tons of people, right? And just kind of letting loose, being coachable and letting loose. But it is, when somebody first comes into our program, one of the first things we do is talk about make sure they're understanding expectations.
Yeah.
Why are they even wanting to do this? What is
Yeah.
what is their point? What are they hoping to achieve? Right. So that helps them understand why they are coming to us to be coached to achieve, because we know how to do it. We know how to teach them and the whys and all this stuff. But I need to know, what is that person's why? Right? Is it for generational wealth for not only them, but their children, their grandchildren, and so on and so forth? For me, that's a lot of what it is, right?
Sure.
Um, and then for me, it's also quality of life and lifestyle. Like a couple of years ago, we took 3 cruises in 1 year. Cruising is something that we love to do. I have a background. I used to be a host for Carnival Cruise Line after high school for a couple of years, but
I'm
my
surprised
wife.
you didn't get a bad taste in your mouth after being on the
Oh
cruise
my
ship. So
God. No, I love it. I love it. My wife and I, I'll say that sparks flew on a cruise that we were on, and so maybe that's why we've been married for 17 years now and have 2 beautiful daughters.
did you meet her on a cruise?
I already knew her. We were
Uh-huh.
traveling in a large group, And so we kind of are all traveling together, but just during that cruise is really where sparks fruit, where they flew. It's a very romantic environment cruising, right? So I highly recommend it.
Where was that cruise? Where was it? What kind of a cruise was it? Where was it
Oh,
to?
Caribbean. Yeah. Always Carnival Cruise Line. I've done tons of cruises because I was an employee for 2 years, but even on my own, I mean, we've done almost 15 cruises.
Okay.
Always Carnival Cruise Line. Yeah. So
Okay, so it's a
plugs for
Caribbean.
Carnival.
Do you remember where you stopped in the Caribbean? Like which, where their
Oh my
stops?
God. The cruise that I did with my wife Shannon at that time, I could not. I mean, definitely Caribbean,
Yeah,
east,
right.
west, south. I don't remember. It's
I
been
haven't done a
18 and
Caribbean
19 years.
cruise.
Oh
But
my
I've
God.
been to the Dominican Republic quite a few times. I love going there.
Yep.
And I speak Spanish now simply because I have no other option. I go to Santo Domingo or Santo Domingo Este, and
Yep.
I always wonder because I'm like, I see these cruises that go to the Caribbean. Are they stopping in each individual country? I genuinely don't know how it works.
Oh yeah. Just get on and do some research. Yeah, you would love it. I recommend it to everybody. But anyways,
We
well,
digress. We
yeah.
digress.
I mean,
But
let's talk for a second about arbitrage. I think a lot of
yeah,
people may not even know what it is,
that's
right?
right. Yeah, that's what I wanted
Because
to talk about, right?
a lot of a lot of people they love the idea of getting into real estate. I mean, what are the most millionaires? Most millionaires that exist out there are in the real estate space. They're doing something, multifamily, fix and flip. There's so many different areas, short term, midterm, long term. There's so many areas of real estate, and most millionaires and billionaires that exist out there have got real estate in their umbrella of income sources. Absolutely.
Nick,
It's a tax write-off.
when I hear arbitrage, I think taking like the water bottle in Yankee Stadium principle. You have the water bottle, it's worth $1.50 at 7-Eleven, but I put it in Yankee Stadium, it's worth 11.50.
Sure.
It's the difference in value based on markets. Am I on to it or am I completely off?
No, and sometimes people ask me, well, why would somebody pay that much more money for a midterm rental? Well, here's some of the reasons why. They are in a situation where they need a place to live and they either don't have furniture or their furniture is waiting to go into their permanent home, like in a relocation situation. So they need a place that's fully furnished. They need to stay in a place for less than 12 months. You go on Zillow and you look around, every single contract is 12 months or longer.
Yep.
Right. And then because they're there for a shorter amount of time, months instead of years, they don't want to put the utilities in their name and set up the internet and the trash and the recycling and, all that stuff. So really for those three reasons, length of stay, they can't sign a long contract, don't want to put the utilities in their name since they're there for a short amount of time. And then because they're there for a short amount of time, they either don't have furniture or they don't want to move their furniture in. So they need somewhere that's fully furnished. Right.
Hmm.
And a lot of times it's businesses paying for these people to stay in these monthly accommodations. So that explains why you can charge more. Right.
Right.
But arbitrage, for those who don't know, like a lot of people think in order to get into real estate, you have to save up a deposit to put down 10 or 20% on a house
Right.
to get into real estate. Well, that's the beauty of arbitrage, right? Now don't get me wrong. My portfolio is a mixture of arbitrage and owned properties. But for somebody getting in, you get a few arbitrages under your belt. The amount of cash flow that's coming in from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties, you'll save out that deposit with those cash flows so quickly. And then now you're in the game, of what you thought you were getting into, right? You're now buying your first property. And then you continue with your arbitrage and you're buying another property and so on and so forth. One thing that I recommend to people is if you're flexible, we've been buying a house every year.
Hmm.
So people ask me why I do that is because legally, when I move into that house and I make it my primary residence, after 12 months, I can move out and it's now investment property. But I only had to pay 3.5 or 5% down for the down payment, of the house. Where normally, if I'm going to stay in my single family dwelling, if I'm going to stay in my home, my primary residence, and then I want to add another house, that is investment property. So you're
Right.
usually putting a minimum of 20% down.
Yeah, it's a totally
Yeah. So a
different game.
$500,000 house, 20% down, that's a big chunk
100
of
grand.
change.
Yeah,
But if you change that 20% down to 3.5 or 5%, that's a lot more attainable by a lot of people.
for sure.
That's a
This is
huge tens and tens of thousands of dollars difference.
this is one of these things where, I don't think for me personally, selfishly, was not aware that there was coaching even out there in the midterm rental space. I really felt like was a afterthought for me because I had the false assumption that, well, it's going to be impossible for someone like me starting out to build these relationships in the midterm rental space. I'm sure they already have, but what I'm learning right now is that you really, with the influx of nurses and all these professionals, there's really almost never going to be enough in the foreseeable future midterm rental space. And how do you get that coaching? Well, you go to Nick. So we are coming up on time here, Nick. How can folks get a hold of you?
Well, I mean, you can go to MTR, which stands for Midterm Rental. Go to mtrauthority.com. And if you want to look up, now my wife and I run this company together. Her name is Shannon. And if you want to, go to check out our social media or anything, Coach Nick and Shannon, so you can look up Coach Nick and Shannon. But I do have to say, you got to spell her name correctly or you're not going to get there. Shannon normally is spelled Shannon, but she's A-N. So it's kind of like Shannon, Shannon instead of Shannon is what she says.
Shannon.
Yeah. Something interesting about, Shannon, my wife, is she's also a musician and a singer. And so you can go to Shannon Copland, .com or look up Shannon Copland Music. So just a little plug for her. After 17 years of marriage, I'm more than happy to tell people about my wife. Absolutely. But, I hope if for people listening to this, what I hope people walk away with is kind of like an open mind and, and really like, oh, wow, I didn't realize a lot of people don't know the term arbitrage yet, like, if you want to rent a $3,000 house, and I don't know where people live across the United States, it may be a $2,000 house, but, let's say a 3 or 4 bedroom house with a couple of bathrooms, that's usually between $2,000 and $3,000 on average, depending on where you live in the country. And then instead of buying that house and putting down tens of thousands of dollars, you're only putting down a security deposit, which is normally equal to 1 month of rent. So you're only putting down $2,000 or $3,000. So you're going to spend, let's say worst case scenario for the average person, $3,000 and your first month rent. Here's the keys. Go start making money versus, that depending on where you live, that $400,000 to $600,000 house kind of average in the United States.
You got to put up $100,000 if it's not your primary.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, this is suddenly attainable for tons and tons of people.
Everybody needs to be looking into this, Nick.
Yeah.
We are coming up on time here. I think we could probably have a whole nother 2 podcasts, fill up an hour worth of time.
Go.
Me just diving in here to the questions that you teach in your coaching program. But yeah, folks, reach out to Nick. And if you want to learn about the midterm rental space and you thought it was previously unattainable, well, now you've got your trusted resource with years of experience, 500 plus students in Nick Copland. Nick, thank you for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.